The medical bay smelled of disinfectant and something else, something wild that no amount of scrubbing could erase. Mira had grown used to it over the past 6 months aboard the Talon's Edge, the Krell warship that had taken her as their soft species consultant. A polite term for prisoner, though the chains were invisible and made of circumstance rather than metal. She pressed the last piece of synthetic skin onto the gash across the smallest cub's shoulder and stepped back. The kit, no more than 3 solar cycles old, hissed at her, needle-sharp teeth flashing in a mouth that could already tear through flesh. Mira smiled gently. "There you go, brave one," she said, her voice level and warm. "You're all done." The cub's mother, a towering Krell warrior with scars crisscrossing her scaled hide, scooped up her offspring with surprising tenderness. She met Mira's eyes, those vertical slits that had once haunted the human's nightmares, and gave a slow, deliberate nod. Respect in the Krell way. As they left, another line of cubs waited. 7 of them, ranked by size, each bearing the marks of their training: split claws, torn ear frills, deep scratches from practice combat that had gone too far. The Krell began combat instruction early, painfully early by human standards. Vek stood third in line. He was different from the others. Where they shifted and snarled, impatient and aggressive, Vek watched. His golden eyes, unusual even among his species, tracked every movement Mira made. He had been watching her for weeks now. "Next," Mira called, gesturing to the first cub. The youngling swaggered forward, all bravado despite the limp in his gait. A puncture wound in his thigh leaked dark blood. Mira knelt to his level. Always knelt, never loomed, and examined it. "This needs cleaning first," she explained, though she knew he probably didn't understand standard. The Krell cubs learned battle cant before any other language. Still, she always explained, "It's going to sting." She worked efficiently, her hands steady as they cleaned, sealed, and wrapped. The cub growled low and threatening but didn't strike. They never did. Not anymore. It had been different in the first weeks. The cubs had tested her, snapping at her fingers, threatening with claw and fang. The adult Krell had watched with amusement, waiting to see if their human would break, would cry out, would run. Mira's hands had never trembled. She remembered the day everything changed. A cub, barely old enough to walk, had bitten down on her forearm while she stitched his wound. His teeth had pierced skin, drawn blood. The room had gone silent. Violence against the medical officer was a killing offense, even for a cub. Mira had simply continued working. Blood ran down her wrist. Her hands remained steady. She'd finished the stitches, patted the cub's head, and only then bandaged her own wound. The Krell had stared at her with something new in their eyes that day. "Next," Mira called again. A female cub bounded forward, proudly displaying a torn ear frill. A trophy from besting an older opponent. Mira praised her victory while working, because that's what these children needed. Acknowledgement of their strength alongside care for their wounds. Then Vek stepped forward. His injury was minor, scratches along his neck, but he moved slowly, deliberately. Those golden eyes never left Mira's face. "Hello, Vek," Mira said softly. She'd learned all their names, though the adult Krell found this peculiar. Warriors needed names. Cubs were simply cubs until they earned their kill marks. Vek's head tilted, reptilian and fluid. When Mira reached for the antiseptic, his claw, still small, still developing, shot out and caught her wrist. Not aggressive, not threatening, curious. He turned her hand over, examining it. The pads of her fingers, the blunt nails, the thin skin that bruised so easily. His golden eyes moved from her hand to her face and back again. "What is it?" Mira asked, letting him explore. Vek made a sound, not a growl or hiss, but something questioning. His claw traced the old scar on her forearm, the bite mark. Then he pressed his scaled palm against hers, comparing. "So different, aren't we?" Mira said. "You're built for hunting, for fighting. I'm built for—" "Well, not that," Vek's eyes narrowed. He clicked his jaw, a gesture of confusion. Then in broken standard that surprised her, he spoke. "Why not shake?" Mira blinked. "Why don't my hands shake?" He nodded, releasing her wrist. She considered the question while preparing the bandage. Around them, the other cubs watched now, sensing something important in this exchange. "I'm afraid," Mira admitted. "Every time I tend your wounds, I'm afraid. Your claws could open my throat. Your teeth could crush my bones. You're predators and I'm prey. The cubs shifted, pleased by this acknowledgement of their superiority. But, Mira continued, gently cleaning Vec's scratches, fear doesn't have to control your hands. Fear lives here. She tapped her chest. And here, she tapped her head. But my hands, they remember what they're supposed to do. Heal, help, hold steady. She applied the bandage with the same precise care she'd shown every cub before him. My species learned something long ago, Mira said, meeting those golden eyes. We're not the strongest. We're not the fastest, but we endure, we adapt. We keep going even when we're terrified. It's what made us survivors. Vec stood motionless for a long moment. Then, in a gesture no Krell cub had ever made to her, he lowered his head. Submission, recognition. The other cubs erupted in clicks and hisses of confusion. But Vec turned to them and spoke in battle cant, too fast for Mira to follow. Whatever he said made them go quiet. When the last cub had been bandaged and the medical bay finally emptied, Mira allowed herself to sit. Her hands, steady throughout, finally shook with the release of adrenaline. She laughed quietly at the irony. The door chimed. Vec stood in the entrance holding something, a small blade, ceremonial and ancient. For you, he said in careful standard. Steady hands. Brave spirit. He placed it on her desk. You, warrior. Different way. As he left, Mira picked up the blade. It was a cub's first weapon given up voluntarily, an offering of the highest respect. She smiled, setting it carefully beside her medical tools. Outside, in the training yards, the cubs lined up again for their evening drills. And watching from the shadows, Mira saw adult Krell warriors observing her through the viewport, not with the amusement they'd once shown, but with something else entirely. Understanding. The human's hands had never trembled, and in that steadiness she had taught predators what courage truly meant.